Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for y'all. I love y'all. I muted myself while I was testing something to make sure I could share my screen, and I forgot to unmute it. So, yay. Okay, I love y'all. Thank you for letting me know that there was no sound, because I would have done the entire thing on mute. Oh boy, good times. So that's just a very good representation of where my brain is at right now. And I'm not going to call it prep brain. That's something that you might hear in the industry. Prep brain is when you get low on macros, calories, you feel depleted, you can't think straight, all that, right? Well, I got to say, on carnivore, ketovore, I don't really experience those kinds of things like you would if you were a typical high carb bodybuilder. So it's not prep brain, but it is travel brain right now, because we had a really late flight Friday night. We got into Louisville. Am I saying that right? For Ketopalooza on Friday night. We got in at midnight, and I don't know what time we got to sleep, but little sleep on Friday night, all day Saturday. It was awesome. So great to see some of y'all in person, get to actually hug you and chat and spend time. It was a blast. I'm getting ready to put together a little photo dump of the weekend, because just a few hours in, I just stopped posting because I was consumed in the activities. And I stopped posting. But I took so many photos, and I have so many great photos from the event. So I'll be doing a little reel recap on my Instagram and Facebook probably tomorrow. But all that to say, so that was all day Saturday. And then Sunday morning, we had to wake up really early for a flight to get back. So it was like a 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. wake up. And I am like, done. So today, this morning, I was like, you know what? I will see what I'm inspired to talk about on this week's masterclass. And there was no inspiration. There was just getting into things in the academy. We just started the build. Training program started today. So, of course, things to catch up on there, and playing catch up on some things for private clients. And then, of course, my own training and cardio and all that good stuff. So I was like, okay, if it doesn't come to me. And then just a couple hours ago, I was thinking about how it has been 5 weeks since I've done an update on my prep on my YouTube channel. And I was doing those as pre-recorded videos. And I thought, what the heck? Why not combine them and do it live? So on those videos, I share really in-depth data. I share my personal progress tracker with you and show each and every data point that I'm tracking. I'm tracking a lot of data points right now. So I figured, what the heck, let's do this live. And if y'all have questions about what's on my tracker, why I do this, that, or the other thing, we can get deep into the weeds of what it is like to be on a ketogenic bikini prep. We can chat about all of that good stuff tonight. And you can ask your questions live in real time, and it'll be a blast. So, all right. First and foremost, let me just kind of catch you up on what's been going on in the last 5 weeks since my last update. If y'all have not seen my updates this year, they have been few and far between. Honestly, y'all, I have so much respect for YouTubers and content creators. The content I create is mainly for helping my clients and my community, my tribe, Keto Bikini Tribe. If you're here, you're in the tribe, I'm pretty sure. Most of y'all are in my Facebook group as well. So it's really all about what the needs are, and when there's a need, I provide. But I'm not a YouTuber. I would love to become one. I would love to become better at it. But boy, is it a lot of work. So my hat goes off to all you amazing YouTube creators. But it takes a lot to film and edit and post videos consistently. So your girl has not been in doing that very consistently. They've been every 3 or 4 weeks, and this one stretched out to 5. So real quick, I'll do a little update of where I was on that last update, and then I'll catch you up to speed on kind of what's been going on with the prep, the progress that I have made, and what's been happening. I did make notes because I was going to do this video 2 weeks ago. So I'll share some of that behind the scenes stuff, and then I will pull up my progress tracker and I will show you week to week how the data is looking and how I evaluate it week to week and how I decide what to do next and what needs to change. I think this is going to be a really great, almost kind of like a workshop, real time, like how do you do this stuff in the trenches, right? So first, let's go back, and this is going to be good for me too, because you're going to get a little stream of consciousness as I reflect over this stuff with you. And I'll probably be thinking of things that I have not connected the dots on yet. So let me go back to, I think it was 11 weeks out that I did my last update. I think it might have been before the KBB retreat in Florida. It was after, so we've been traveling a lot this year. I thought it was going to be less travel than last year or 2022 prep, but it really hasn't been. I think I've been traveling every month. So we went to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, spent a weekend there. And then after I got back is when I did my last update, and that was right before the KBB retreat in Florida. So it was right between those pieces of travel. So I was 8 weeks into the cut and 11 weeks out to the show, something like that, or 7 weeks into the cut. I was sitting around 120 pounds. For reference, I am barely 5 feet tall. So just so you can put this in perspective of height and weight and whatnot. So very, very small human being. I was sitting around 120 pounds, 120.6, 23% body fat on average that week that we got back from the cabin. And I think I had been hanging out there up and down between 119 and 121 for 3 or 4 weeks. I started the prep at, let's just do a full update. Yeah, week 0, I was at 122 pounds and 23% body fat. I had gotten a drop down to 121 and 22%, 120 and 22%. Back up to 121 with my cycle and 21.8%. Hung out there for another week and then dropped to 119.8, so just under 120, 22% body fat. Then I got my cycle again, jumped back up on average to 120.6, 22%. And then at the time of my last update, I was sitting at 120. I was still sitting right there. So y'all can see the frustration of this prep and how it's been different than past preps. This up and down and kind of maintaining for weeks at a time definitely feels much slower and much more difficult to push through plateaus than the past. And the big thing I've been talking about this whole prep is the fact that I'm in perimenopause. I have had low testosterone for a couple of years now. It is higher than it has been this entire time over the last 2 years. I'm actually going to give you an update on that because I had a discussion with my functional naturopathic doctor about my hormones. I got tested again after that. We chatted. So I'll be telling you all about that good stuff. But still very low, still low. It's not at the levels that I want it to be. So, Amanda, what is your goal? Great question. Specifically, what do you mean goal? By goal? What is my goal? Body composition? What is my goals for this show? What do you want to hear specifically about my goal? Okay, so I was hanging out there. I was still hanging out right there where I had been stuck that week. So y'all have not heard all of the awesome, fun, exciting changes that have happened in the last 4 weeks since then. So 8 weeks in, 11 weeks out. Actually, that might have been when I did. I might have informed you all about that. Or it may have only been on my Instagram. So in case you didn't know, I've been doing these prep updates on YouTube that are the long form, like what I'm doing tonight. But on Instagram, every couple of weeks or so, I've been also just posting a physique update with what I'm looking like, videos and photos, and then just the stats of what has happened week to week. So I'm not doing that every single week, but that's been probably a little more frequent than YouTube. So on Instagram, you can kind of get the highlight reel with all the, just the quick highlights, everything written out, and taking a page out of Rob Sykes' Keto Savage book. I took kind of how he does his prep updates with these quick bullet points, how many weeks in, how many weeks out, body composition, macros, staple foods, things that he shares. And then I added a whole bunch of other stuff, like I'm testing my fasted blood glucose and my ketones. I'm including week over week changes and changes from baseline. So I can look at, how these things are changing week to week, but also how do they compare to where I started from, which really has been helping on the mindset. So that's going to be a big tip. I'm going to have some tips for y'all on how to work through these things when you're feeling frustrated, because the data can be so helpful when you really understand what you're looking at. So I'm making sure I'm looking at week to week changes, but also baseline changes from baseline. I'm tracking my BMR using a InBody along with all my other body composition data. I'm tracking my water and electrolyte intake, my training, my cardio, my sleep, my cycle phase. What phase of my cycle am I in, or at least do I think I'm in as I navigate perimenopause? And then mindset and journaling. I kind of journal out some things and share some notes about what I've been going through lately each week. So those kinds of things I'm updating on Instagram. Oh my goodness, Debbie shows I have never had my hormones checked, and I've been post-menopause for years. Girlfriend, it is time. It is time to start checking those hormones. It is helpful to understand this information. I wish I would have checked it early in my 30s. I wish I would have checked it mid 30s. I wish I would have been checking at least once a year so I could have gotten some baselines, because, I did start testing. I have some like year to year testing that I did prior. But I've been testing with my functional doctor now every quarter for the last 3 years or so. And it's been really helpful to try to understand what might be going on with things and how certain things that I'm doing with my diet and my lifestyle might be impacting my blood work, all different types of blood work. And then how the blood work markers, the more markers that your doctor can see, the more of a full picture they can really get, and you can get. So knowing my hormones along with thyroid, along with lipids, along with, cholesterol is lipids, everything, blood count, all of the total blood count, all of those things. Okay, so Amanda says, yes, all the goals, yes. Okay, so that's a great question to kind of put this in perspective as you're looking at my numbers. So while it really does not matter at all what your weight or body fat percentage or body fat mass in pounds or lean mass in pounds, none of that data actually matters on stage. All the judges are looking at are your physique and how it looks compared to the other competitors on stage. That's it. They have no idea any of your data. So I always like to say to take the data with a grain of salt and try not to let it mean anything more than you're just trying to track if you're making progress or not. So while the judges have no idea about any of that, I kind of look at each year that I have competed, where was I when I was stage lean in terms of body weight, body composition, right? Body fat and lean mass or skeletal muscle mass. Early on, I was in my first couple of years competing, I did not have an I didn't have an in-body. I didn't have an in-depth way of looking at all of the individual little body composition markers. So I had a basic scale. They told me weight, body fat percentage. It might have given like skeletal muscle mass percentage, but I don't know how much I trusted that. And water percentage, I didn't really trust that. Y'all heard me talk about this on the masterclass on scales. So if you haven't seen that, that's a good one to watch. But DEXA, I think I've gotten a DEXA at almost all of my shows, maybe all of my shows. So I do keep a running list of where I was by DEXA and my home scale. I have a note. Let me pull it up and I can tell you how my different shows have compared. Because I kept all my body composition scales in one place, scans in one place from all my shows. So each show, I'm always kind of looking at where was I on the last show. That's the thing that kind of stays in my mind, right? So my last show in 2022, I got my DEXA a little after the show, I believe. Yeah, I got the DEXA December 21st of 2022, and that was about 2 weeks after my show, I believe. The show was like December 3rd or 5th, something like that. So I waited a couple weeks because I was in Atlanta, and that's where I go see my regular guy, my DEXA guy, for the holidays. But on show day, I also obviously tracked. I actually brought my in-body with me because the show was in Atlantic City and we could drive there. So I brought the in-body with me and I weighed on my in-body on show day. The lowest I got, which was on show day, and I think it was either the day after or 2 days after the show, was my lowest weight. And it was, I believe, 109.8 or 108.9, something like that, right around 109, right under 110. And that's not uncommon for where I have been at past shows. In 2020, which was my pro debut, November 25th, which was just a few days before, that was DEXA. So yeah, DEXA is going to be a little different. And I had my old home scale then. So I was 112.8 when I left for Miami. And I believe when I got to that show, it was a little higher than I usually sit for a show. There were 2 shows, I will say. There were 2 shows in my past where I was less conditioned than I wanted to be. And that was my NPC show in 2017 and my WBFF Pro debut in 2020. Both of those shows, I was sitting a little bit above 110. I think I was 111. I might have been higher. It might have been like 113 for the NPC show. And I think I was sitting around 111, maybe somewhere around there for the 2020 show. Both of those times I was not as conditioned. And when I mean conditioned, I mean shredded. I was not as lean as I needed to be more competitive at those 2 shows. My best show ever, which I believe my 2 best shows ever, were the show in 2019 when I won my pro card, and then my last show in 2022 when I got top 5 as a pro in the Atlantic City Pro. And last show was 108 or 109 point something. And in 2019, when I won my pro card, I was 107, I believe. I might have even gotten down to 105. Granted, that was 5 years ago now, so I had less muscle mass then. So sitting at 105 now, I can't even imagine what that would look like. My initial goal when I started this cut was to get leaner than I did at my last show, because my goal was, I'm actually glad you asked this question. My goal was to compete in fitness this year, which is the next level up. You have more mass and you have lower body fat on you. So you look more conditioned, more shredded. You can see the striations in the muscles. They really want to see those muscles pop in the fitness category or division. I ended up deciding a couple weeks ago that this was not going to be the year that I was going to go for fitness. Look who joined us, y'all. He's just giving me the hard eyes. He's like literally in that room right there. Hey, Coach Bronson. I'm so glad you're here. So my initial goal was to do fitness. Bronson was a part of that decision. I get his input on everything. Well, not absolutely everything, but I was going through the struggles with the hormones and all this stuff. It's just my body's not responding as quickly and as predictably as it always did in the past. I used to be able to count on a pound of weight loss per week. So a pound of body fat loss, essentially, per week in a prep. And it could just drop. I might hit a little plateau here and there, but we used to just get it. It used to drop like clockwork. Ain't so easy anymore. Now, thinking back in 2022, I was 39 at the time. That's when I first started experiencing some of the symptoms of perimenopause, but I wasn't really aware of it yet. I thought it might have just had to do with making the shift from keto to carnivore and, my body adjusting and my cycles adjusting and whatnot. It wasn't until about a year and a half later where I finally admitted to myself that, yes, here we are. It's perimenopause and it's just happening a little earlier than I wanted it to or expected it to. So all of that to say, made the decision that fitness was not going to happen this year. And we would stay in the wellness division. And I decided to add a second division, and that is to do a crossover into bikini athletic, which is a brand new division in the FMG, which is a brand new federation. So fitness, muscle, glamour, very similar to where I used to compete. They actually allowed me to transfer my pro card. So wellness is a more a softer look than fitness. Wellness and bikini are a softer look than fitness. They do not expect all the striations in the muscles. They want in wellness a full backside, a full glutes, full hips, thicker, bigger legs. And that's your girl all day long. Now, when I get really, really lean, sometimes I lose some of the glutes and I lose some of the fullness in my legs. So I was thinking, okay, this year, let's give this new category, this new division, bikini athletic, a try, which is basically kind of like this in between bikini and fitness, because ultimately I do want to do fitness, but I think I need to put on a lot more mass, which has been difficult with lower testosterone this year, or in my off season. I have not put on significant muscle mass. I really have not put on much at all. According to InBody, I have not put on any lean mass in the last off season. So I think I need to build a good bit of more mass, and I need to be able to get a lot leaner to be competitive in fitness. So we decided to pivot, stick with wellness, which is I got my pro card in bikini, and then I've been competing in wellness as a pro. So we're going to do wellness again, and we're going to do bikini athletic and give that a try and see what the judges' feedback is on that and see how I look on stage with the other bikini athletic and wellness competitors. And then really my goals for this show are to experience my first FMG show. I have no expectations in terms of placings. I'm not going into it with one of those like super competitive mentalities and this attitude of I'm going in to win a crown, win a title. I will be competing until I become a champion, period. I will eventually achieve a championship title. That is my goal always in this sport. And I will continue in this sport until I reach that level. And then I will compete as a champion. and I will go for a world title. So that is my long-term goal. I am not shooting for that at this show. This show is about making my FMG Pro debut as, in this new federation and seeing where I stack up, because the FMG is a more competitive federation than what I came from. So it will be a much more difficult lineup. I will be up against a stacked lineup. It sounds like this is going to be the largest show of the year from what I'm hearing. So it should be very competitive. So I'm excited about that, but I am not expecting anything. I just want to see what the feedback is so that I can come in and be incredibly competitive next year. So that's my big goal there. In terms of numbers though, my initial goal was to beat my level of leanness from last prep. I don't know if that will be possible at this stage of the game, sitting where I'm sitting right now. We did get some great drops since my last update, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. But I'm still behind in terms of where I would need to be at this point in time to get leaner than I was in 2022. So at this point, I will tell you, and it's funny because I actually had the same thing happened in my last prep. I said, I don't know how many weeks out, I'll be happy with X number. I don't remember what number I said last time. But we ended up getting some surprise drops right at the end, and I ended up coming in leaner than I even expected to. And so I would love it if that happens again. But I'm conditioning my mind to say, hey, if I can hit 112 or 111, if I hit 110, I will be absolutely thrilled. But if I come in at 112, then at this stage, because I'm going to tell you where I'm at in a minute, that is still aggressive for the next 5 weeks. So I still would love to hit 110. That I'm going to shoot for 110 in terms of weight. I believe my last prep, I ended at about 13 or 14% body fat. Now at my size, every pound is about another percentage point. So if I'm sitting at, I haven't even told y'all where I'm at yet. I'm sitting at 19% body fat right now, and I'm sitting at about 116, 117 pounds. If I drop another 5 pounds, that's another 5% body fat. I will end up at that 14%, but I will be a little bit higher in weight. And so maybe I have actually put on a little bit of lean mass. We will really be able to see it when I'm on stage and we can compare my stage physique this year to my stage physique in 2022. And that's when I will really be able to see, did I actually put on some mass that the scale may not be telling me about? So the pictures don't lie. So the pictures say it all. All right. Oh, I got to share this comment because Sabette says, I really noticed the definition in your arms from shoulder to wrist when you were doing coffee chat, not even flexing. That's funny because Bronson just came in here and said, why are you flexing your traps? And I was like, I'm not flexing. But that's what happens, y'all. The last 6 weeks is where all the magic happens. So it's exciting because truly, I just got like the biggest drops of this prep twice in 1 week in the last week and a half since 6 weeks out. So this is where things really start flying. So it's very possible I could totally blow my goals out of the water. I just like to be conservative on the goals because I'm not trying to set myself up mentally for failure. I want myself to feel like a success. So we are going to, be conservative about the goals and then try to kill those goals. All right. So let me give you some updates of where I'm at now. So I told you that last time I updated y'all, I was sitting around 120 and I was about 21% body fat. Yeah, 8 weeks in, 11 weeks out, 21% body fat. Something like that. I should just share my screen because now I'm going to go through there we go. Let's add this to the stage so y'all can see it. All right. I want to make sure I can still see the chat. Okay, so let's expand this guy, or maybe not, so you can focus on what I'm focusing on. All right, so here was at 8 weeks in, the 8th week of my cut and 11 weeks out. This was my last update. And here's where we see the averages. So one thing I like to talk to y'all about all the time is not to fixate on the daily numbers, because it can be really easy to get attached to the low that you got that week, but your average is probably higher than that low. And it's probably lower than your last average. So always we want to look at averages. So I love looking at the averages. Here on the left, I put my macros, and then I keep the goal macros here so that I can see very easily how closely I hit those or how far off I hit them. And y'all, I got to be super transparent here. And this is why I like to share this stuff. We can be in our heads about, oh my gosh, the hormones and everything's working against me. Or I can look at the data and see, hey, look when my numbers were higher than they should have been. Look at how my average calories were higher. And y'all know, I gotta say this for Bronson. Y'all know we don't focus on calories, but here it is a way of seeing, okay, did I overeat or undereat, right? So that's kind of the way you can look at those numbers. Obviously, we can see the specifics in the macros, but think of calories as, did I overeat, did I undereat, or did I eat as much as I was supposed to? So here we go. You can see most of these weeks. This week, yep, overate a little bit. Not by a lot, but a little bit. Overate my macros a little bit. This one, I was under. So it really helps you see, when you look at the data, did I actually execute the plan or not? Right? So that's how I look at this. We can get in our heads, we can get focused on what we're doing that day, but when you can pull it out to a week and look at the week and say, okay, how accurately did I actually follow the plan that I set, and do I need to change something? Do I change anything, or do I just need to follow the plan better? So, okay, so that's where I was the last time I showed y'all. And then I got my cycle and my weight went back up. So here we go. These colored rows are the cycle. This was 9th week in, 10 weeks out. 10 weeks out is when I say, so this is starting my 9th week in the cut, and it is as of the top 10 weeks out. So by the time we get to the bottom, I am going to be 9 weeks out here. So this was kind of like the halfway mark of the prep here. It's pretty close on nailing my macros that week. You can see that right at the start of my cycle here is when my weight jumped up. I don't give that much credence. I don't let that stress me at all. I know it's going to drop right back down. And look, I got my lowest drop right after that cycle ended. And guess what, y'all? This was in Florida on the KBB retreat. So I got there, I think the 12th, the 11th or the 12th, or maybe the 13th. And then the 14th, I believe, was the day of our photo shoot. And that's the day I got the drop. And I was ecstatic. I was just over the moon. I was like waiting for that drop because I could just feel that it was going to come. So that felt really good to see that low. But guess what happens? The average of your weight that week is not the low day. You get the low day, you get excited about the low day. But when you look at the averages, it averaged out to 119.3. But still, that was the lowest average. Oh, no, it wasn't. Look at that. The week before, I had a lower average. So I was prepping for that drop. That 117 was like right there, but it didn't come yet. We got a little bump back up before it came. And then I don't fixate and say, well, now I'm expecting to be 117 every day. I know that it could bump back up. So I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen. And then the following week, look at what happened. It went back up. 118s and 119s. So you cannot get too excited about a drop. Take the drop, mark it down, do a little happy dance, hope that expect for it to come back, but don't expect that to be your weight every day now. All right, so this week, and look what happened in this following week. I had been cutting because you see the Savage system listed here because this year I decided to follow Rob Sykes, Keto Savage. I decided to follow his Savage system to a T and say, okay, I'm going to follow each phase. He gives you like very detailed, his book and his course give you very detailed, do this in each phase of the prep and in each week of each phase of the prep. He changes things. That is not the way I have done preps in the past. But this has been very insightful, and I think at the end of all of this, I'm going to do an overview video of what I thought of following the Savage system, and what will I be taking, what gems will I be taking from it to incorporate into future preps, and what parts may I not, will I maybe not be using in the future. But you manipulate your macros slightly every single week. So as my macros were dropping, you can see here's where I got the drop. I had been nailing them pretty closely. I had a higher day here, drop, 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 higher day here. This is our last day, I think, when we made way too much chicken and I decided I was going to refeed. So chicken wings. Definitely overconsumed that day. Look at that. Macros were all super high. So that brought all the averages up. And guess what happened? Look at this. High protein. Even the carbs were a little higher than I usually have them. And high fat. So overall, overconsumed. So what happened on the scale the next day? We were up 2 pounds almost. 1.5 pounds. So yeah. And look, I overate that day too. Then I started bringing it back down, and look, the scale started coming back down. Look at that. So when you can connect what did I do and then what were my results, you can see as you get consistent with your deficit, boom, the drops happen. So is it just my hormones, or is it just that I wasn't as dialed in as I needed to be? Because you can still make it happen. All right, so this was 9 weeks out. We got another average drop. So this was the biggest average drop, the lowest I had been yet, 118.8 and 20.8. Then at the 8-week out mark, where we are now, this is where we are now? No. That's right. I am only 5 weeks out now. Yikes. Juliana says, but those wings were grilled exquisitely. Yes, indeed they were. Say hello to our grill master in Florida. I mean, they were good. It was worth it. Okay, so yeah, so this is where I really started dialing things in. This is where I wanted that 117 back so badly. I was like, let's go. So this is where you start to see I dialed it in, and I came in damn near perfectly on point with my macros in this week. And look what happened, 118.0. I sat in the 117s most of that week. And look at all this like fluctuation, y'all. 19%, 20%, up and down with the skeletal muscle mass. And I never worry about those things. It's fluid balance. You know, the scale is going to do that up and down, up and down. It doesn't really know. It's guesstimating. So I don't really put any stock into that. But now things are moving. So I want to see, is this when I started getting more serious about cardio too? Yep, look at that. So we went from, let's just go up here. Look at this. We went from lots of zeros in the cardio column, total of 65 minutes of cardio, 70 minutes of cardio for the week, 30 minutes of cardio for the week. This stepped it up a little bit to 73, but only 3 days. And then boom, 20 minutes to 30 minutes of cardio, 5 days a week, 110 total minutes of cardio. And that is the week where we got the biggest drop. So I stepped up my cardio. I pulled back on my macros. And that's where we got the drop. It's as simple as that with prep. We need to train hard to maintain our muscle mass. We need to recover well in between our training sessions. We need to flex the macros, the deficit, by using the macros, pulling back on macros and pulling up on cardio. Those are the levers we pull to get that body fat coming off. So week 12, 7 weeks out, this is where I was leading into my cycle again and pulled back again on macros. Here's the goal. I had a couple of really high protein days. Look at this. I went ham these days, and this was right before my cycle started. How many of y'all have told me you get so hungry, ravenous before your cycle starts? It's a very common thing. So I did allow myself to eat a little bit more on those days, and it did not really negatively impact anything at this stage of the game. But I also was stepping up the cardio to the next level. So it was counteracting that. So for one thing, I do remember this. I remember doing my first HIIT my first HIIT session, which I think I only did like 15 minutes. And I remember thinking that I was starving. And I was like, yep, here we go. Started doing more cardio. Cardio does make you hungrier. So that's something to consider is, that's some of the nuances that we deal with in bodybuilding during a cut is you're pulling these levers, but you're not doing things drastically because you can then shoot yourself in the foot and end up messing up because you're so hungry, you end up overeating and then you negate everything that you did with the cardio. So we really do have to, consider everything, right? We're trying to manage the appetite. We're also trying to manage, our intake, and we're trying to manage our output all at the same time. And that's why not everybody can do this and be, successful at it, because it's not an easy thing to do. If it were easy, everybody would do it. So as you can see, my averages ended up pretty well over this week. Over on protein, over on carbs, over on fat. I was over on everything. Now, on average, I still got a slight drop, but not by much. Yeah, not by much at all. That was 7 weeks out. So then we get into the 6 weeks out. This was last week. So last week, finishing up the end of the cycle, I reeled it in because I was like, here we are, 6 weeks out. There is no more time left. I am not playing games. Everything will be dialed into a T from here on out. It should have been at 12 weeks. But when was the best time to plant a tree? Yesterday. When is the best time? Now. Second best time is today. So I don't care what you did or didn't do last week, last month, last year. What are you going to do today? Who knew my prep update would turn into a mindset masterclass? Probably all of you knew that. Okay, so no surprises here. On my cycle, weight bumped up, messed with my body fat percentage a little bit, but then it came back down. I saw my next new low. Last day of my cycle, I got a new low. Now, I want to point something out to y'all. You probably won't be able to tell by this, but this cycle, I had 2 really rough days with pain. I think I shared it on a past episode, but a past prep update that I had been using some prescription painkillers to help me get through those 2 days that were really bad. I had those 2 days again this month, and I think it was I wonder if I can tell by this which days it was. I don't remember now. But, oh yes, I can tell by this, because look at these 2 days. The 8th and 9th, my protein got really low. And that is because these 2 days prior, I was taking the prescription pain meds. Well, they are an opioid, and there's such thing as opioid-induced constipation. In case y'all didn't know this, it slows things down considerably, apparently. I was not aware of this. I learned all about it because I didn't know what the heck was going on. On the 8th, I woke up with heartburn. And y'all, this is something I used to get way before I ever went keto, paleo, carnivore. And I used to have GERD, acid reflux. I was on PPIs for many years. It lowered my stomach acid. And then ever since I've been working with naturopathic doctors, I've been using betaine HCl and digestive enzymes with my meals to help me digest and to help with the stomach acid, to help me digest particularly proteins. But on the 8th, it was like I couldn't digest anything. It was indigestion, acid reflux, heartburn, gas, discomfort, constipation, right? So I pulled way back on the protein simply because I was eating really small meals. And I allowed the fat. I think my goal for the fat this week was 95. So I allowed that to go a little bit over. Well, that day, I guess I didn't do it the next day, but I really pulled back on that protein because it was just so hard to digest it. So as you can see, I was actually under on these days. And then I pulled it up closer to my macro on this day. And then that was the day we flew to Louisville. And I think I ate all my meals before we left that day. So that's why we had chicken. I had chicken thighs. So my fat ended up being even lower. I had a couple of days where the fats ended up really low. I don't remember why. So things pulled back. And then this day, the reason why it is in yellow is because that was Saturday at Ketopalooza. These are estimated numbers. I tracked all day. We went to lunch at a local spot where I got brisket. I got a side of brisket and a side of flank steak, flat iron steak. So I estimated the amounts, and then we went to Brazilian steakhouse Brasileiros that night. And so it was like 1 or 2 ounces of this, that, and the other. I literally brought my scale, and I started out weighing things, and then I realized there's some stuff I can't even find in Chronometer. And then I would weigh it, and then if I didn't like it, I didn't eat all of it, and then I had to weigh what I didn't eat, and it was exhausting. So at some point, I just decided to eyeball it and estimate and find the best entries I could and just kind of try to guess at how much I consumed that day. It could have been even more than this, but it was definitely a refeed, and I fully allowed it. I also skipped breakfast that day, because we were speaking at 11 a.m. I just had my coffee, and then we had lunch, a small lunch, and then we had that big Brazilian dinner. So that was estimated. Since we are going into this week, let me just show you the averages, and then I'll show you all the other data. So on average, you can see quite a drop in my intake this week from the previous week. So from 155 protein, 19 carbs, 101 fat, and 1,600 calories, we came down to 134 protein, 17 carbs, 94 fat, and about 1,450. So this is my biggest drop yet. And it's my biggest drop on the scale yet. So First, I got that drop out of the 117s to 116.8, bumped back up, and then I got my first 115.7. So that's the lowest I've seen all prep, and then settled back at 116.2. So my average for last week was 116.9, and squarely under 20%, squarely at the 19.6% body fat. Been hanging out there the last 3 weeks, 19s, in the 19s. So I'm now chasing that 115, and I'm chasing that 18%. You can see today's weigh-in. Very, very happy because yesterday we were on flights from 8 in the morning all day. Not all day, but I did not bring my InBody on this trip, so I did not weigh yesterday. So this morning I was happy to see 116.6. I was happy to see that I did not, balloon up after the Brazilian steakhouse. And we actually got a little bit lower body fat percentage today. So that tells me that I'm expecting the next drop this week if I am on point, and only if I am on point. All right, so let's show you some other stuff that I'm tracking here. So this one's my skeletal muscle mass. This is what InBody gives me. Most of my preps, I have been anywhere from 52 to 53 pounds of skeletal muscle mass since I've been using the InBody. Well, I said most of my preps, but last prep is the only one I had the InBody. So ever since I've had the InBody, it has had me at somewhere between 51 and 54 for skeletal muscle mass, depending on fluid balance considerations. And sometimes we'll have these weird like 51 or 54, but usually it's somewhere between 52 and 53 pounds of skeletal muscle mass. That doesn't change much, and I don't expect it to change much during this prep. Body fat mass, this is based on the percentage. So it's going to show how many pounds of body fat I have on my body. I think I got down to like 15 pounds of fat for my last show. Lean body mass, this is based on the percentage. So it's not the skeletal muscle. This is pretty much fat-free mass, everything that's not fat. And that usually sits between 93 and 95, somewhere in there. So my fasted blood glucose and ketones. What's interesting this week, this 107, this one morning when it was 107, notice what else happened. Oh, I thought that was the one. I thought it was this day. I thought it was the 115, but it was the 116.8 because that was the first time I dropped under 117. And guess what, y'all? That day I took my weight before I took my glucose. And when I saw the 116.8, I literally jumped up and down. I was so excited and my heart was like pounding. And then I was like, oh, wait, I haven't done my blood glucose yet. I got to calm down. And boom, it was 107. And I just kind of giggled at it because I was like, okay, y'all, you have to consider your state of being when you're testing your blood glucose, because things other than sugar, carbs, protein, other things can impact your blood sugar. So if you're super hyped up, like if you take your blood glucose right after doing a cardio session or a hard training session, it will probably be higher, especially if your heart rate is still elevated. So I just thought that was funny. The other interesting thing is that my ketones were actually higher than they're usually sitting around 0.2. So when my blood glucose was higher, I actually had more ketones in my blood, which is interesting. Okay, this is where I track my, and then the other interesting thing this week was Saturday at Ketopalooza, when I woke up in the hotel, that was the lowest my blood glucose had been this entire prep. It's usually somewhere in the mid 80s or super low 90s, but 76, I was like, oh, that's interesting, but no change in my ketones. And then this column is where I show my hormone metabolites. I'm testing urine metabolites. I'm peeing on the stick. So the first one is LH, the second one is progesterone, and the third one is estrogen. Typically, either everything is low, or I will have some days where LH and PDG are low and estrogen is high. And then I will characterize those days by shading them with the purple. And that was today. My estrogen was through the roof. And it was starting to go high yesterday, which I got a really great back session in yesterday. So I don't know if the estrogen had to do with that, but I'm still figuring out, what these, what the hormone metabolites are showing me in terms of how I'm feeling. But I'm thinking that the higher estrogen days are when I'm having more strength, more all of those things. So we will see. I'm going to continue to watch that. I'll probably keep testing those hormones for like another month, maybe a month after prep, just to see as I go into my restoration phase if anything changes. And then I probably will discontinue using them just because they're very, very pricey. But okay, and then this just shows what day of my cycle I'm on. This is how much water I'm consuming. I had some high days and one lower day. Yeah, some really high days. I think that was when I was dealing with the stomach issues. So I was drinking more water and I was trying to bump up my electrolytes, because another thing I was thinking about was that my sodium was a little lower than usual and my water intake the previous day. And so I bumped up the water and the sodium more that day. Usually I've been shooting for at least 100 ounces of water a day, and that's usually where I land, sometimes more, sometimes less. Sleep was really great, even on my cycle, which was awesome. I did not have the sleep disturbances. I was not waking up, in sweats. I didn't have night sweats. And while I did still have a couple of days of pain, this definitely was a better cycle than the previous one. So, and my cycle lengthened out. So that is great news too. I had a 24-day cycle and they had been very short, 20 days, 21. So I think one of them was even like 17. So I'm hoping for a 28-day cycle or closer to a 28-day cycle. And now I'm also watching when it's likely to come around the show. So I'm kind of hoping it lengthens out so I don't end up having to worry about that for the show. My step count, I am now being more intentional with cardio. So my step count has gone up. Also with travel days, I always get a lot of steps in on travel days. So my average is now right about where I want it, that 10,000 steps a day. Cardio has been definitely been increased, but a little inconsistent. Some days I'm doing a lot, other days I don't do much. I'm really listening to my body in terms of my training. So this was a training day. I did not do cardio that day. I just did a little bit of cardio with that training day. And then these were our travel days. This was the day, this was the night we left. And then this was Ketopalooza. So that was the day I didn't do cardio. So that's right. This was not a travel day. This was just Ketopalooza day. So I was on my feet all day. This was travel day. So no cardio on those days and no training on those days. Let's see. And this is just where I have my little notes, my plan for the week, my macros for the week. This shows the percentage of protein to fat to carbs. Y'all know I don't operate on ratios, but since I'm doing the keto savage protocol, I am looking at how those ratios are changing week to week as I manipulate the macros according to the program. So this week, the plan is, and I haven't even made the plan yet. I had initially put what I thought I was going to be switching to before, but I have not officially decided what I wanted to do this week yet after looking at the data. So my initial plan, I think I was trying to keep fats higher and bring protein down more. the phase of the Savage system that I'm in now is phase 3, where you start pulling back on both protein and fat, or one or the other, but you're pretty much pulling them down together. So my original plan was 120 protein, 15 carbs, and 90 fat. I think I'm going to amend that because last week I did 135, 95, and 15. So I think I want to make it 130 protein, and we'll keep the carbs at 15, and I'm going to go 85 fat. Yeah, calories end up about the exact same almost. But I've been feeling really good on a little bit lower fat, which is interesting. It is very interesting to me, but the last few days, kind of inadvertently, my fats just got really low, probably because yesterday was a travel day. Of course, this was the steakhouse, but the days before that, it was low. And I felt better. I honestly felt better at these macros. So, and typically I looked at where I was in my last prep to compare, because I was thinking about how, I was behind where I was in my last prep. And I thought, well, I bet my macros had gotten, I bet my calories had gotten a lot lower because we dropped my fats. And we did. We kept my protein high in my last prep the entire time. It was around 150 or 160 grams of protein. And my fat was the only thing we were cutting. And my fat got down to 80. And that was my sweet spot. And that was where I was really dropping. And then we dropped it from there to 70, and I kept dropping. So I'm used to eating higher protein and lower fat. I had gotten comfortable eating more closer to 1-to-1 in my off season, but both were really high. And so the higher fat and lower protein thing was not really my jam. I gotta say, since I felt so good with the lower fats, I think I'm going to keep the protein at 130. Still I'll make a slight drop from last week. So down to 130 from 135, and I'll drop the fat by 10 grams. So protein came down 5 and fat came down 10, which is about another 100 calories lower than I was last week. My goal for cardio this week, let's see where I was last week. This is cool. I can kind of show y'all my decision-making process. So I hit 144 total minutes. I would like to be more consistent with cardio this week. So yesterday I did 25 minutes. This morning I did 35 minutes. I do want to hit 10,000 steps a day. Let's see, if we were to plug in 25 minutes a day, every day, at least, that would be significant. We could probably go 20. All right, that's a good goal. So that's still an increase over last week. So if I do 20 minutes a day the rest of the week, which also, that's another thing. Since I've been doing more cardio, I actually feel I crave it now. I'm really looking forward to movement. So we'll go 160 minutes is the goal this week. We'll go 20 minutes per day. And I think I want to do 2 HIIT sessions this week. And it'll probably just be like 10 out of the 20 minutes of 2 of these days. So that's going to be the goal. I'm going to keep my water where it is because I feel really good right there. So this is what it's looking like going into this next week. 39% protein, 5% carbs, and 57% fat, in case you're interested in that. According to these numbers, I was a little low on fat today, but my carbs were a little higher. Oh, what bumped my carbs up today? I bought a bag of Keto Brains, which is a nootropic creamer for coffee, and it's using coconut powder. So that has a good bit of carbs in it. And then what else did I have that had carbs today? Keto Brains. Oh, that's not today's macros. That was yesterday's. Duh. Okay. I haven't put today's macros in yet, but I can because I'm done eating. So today, look at that. Even before I set the new targets, I nailed them. My carbs were still a little higher because of the Keto Brains, I think. So I may just keep that buffer and allow myself to go up to 20 on the carbs because it came today from, did I even eat eggs? My Egg Life wraps, I think those have like a carb in them each. Kulina, my coconut yogurt. Oh, and I had, y'all. Do I have one to show y'all? I'll show y'all in a minute. Creo Brew. If you've never heard me talk about that before, it is a chocolate that you can brew like coffee. But if you track it, just like coffee, it has a few carbs in it. So I think it has 3 carbs per serving in it. You're like literally, you're putting it looks like cacao nibs and you put it in the coffee filter and then you brew it just like coffee. So I had one of those this afternoon. So that bumped them up. Between that and the Keto Brains, it's like 7. And with my coffee, it's like with coffee and the Creo Brew and the Keto Brains, all of those I think were like 10 carbs, maybe even more together. So great question, Amanda. What will your macros look like in the week before comp? Will the fat drop much lower? So in my last prep, do I have that here? Oh, look at that. I can show you all that. Let's see if it'll go with me if I go to a different tab. Let's go to my 2022. I'll show you what I did in the last prep. So here's my 2022 prep, just for shits and gigs. Let's look at where I was at 5 weeks out. That's January. That's December. All right, here's show day. Here's show day. So peak week, look at how low my fat was during peak week. Yikes. 50. We pulled the fats back to 50 only for peak week, and then the 2 days before the show we refed. So that's where we bumped them up to 85. But that was only for peak week. Maybe it was 2 weeks out. I forgot about that. So it was in the 50s 2 weeks out with one refeed. But you can see my protein stayed at 150s and 160s that entire time. It wasn't until right before the show that I started pulling back a little bit on protein, and then we pulled up the fats. So I pulled back on the protein, we pulled up the fats just going into the show. But let's see. So 3 weeks out, I want to see where I was. So 3 weeks out, we were at about 60. Let's look at what my goals were, where we set the goals. Yeah. So fat came down to 63 weeks, 4 weeks out. That would have been 4 weeks out. 5 weeks out. Look at that. So right now, 5 weeks out is when we dropped my fats to 60 in my last prep, but we kept the protein up at 150. So for my little body, that's only 1,200 calories. And look at that. We were doing 30 minutes of cardio a day, 6 days a week. So before that, my fats were at 70 for quite a while. And so the grand majority of my prep, my last prep, my fats were at 80 and then at 70. And then it wasn't until those last 4 weeks that we started really pulling back. So I guess I was at 60 for 2 or 3 weeks. And then I was at 50 for 1.5-ish weeks, which is very low. I don't anticipate getting that low at all this time. This time, I'll show you the plan. Of course, you just saw my process. So At the end of each week, I assess how closely I stuck to the macros, what my results are, and then what do I need to do the next week. So the following week is when I will say, okay, do I still like the original plan, or do I want to do something different? So I planned out what I thought I might do the rest of the prep. So I'll show you what that looks like. Originally, remember, this was 120 and this was 90, and then I was going to go to 115 and 85, and then 110 and 80, and then 105 and 75, and my plan going into the show was going to be 100 protein and 70 fat. However, that will probably shift a little bit because right now I decided to keep my protein a little higher. So what I'll probably do is maybe just drop the protein and keep the fats at 85 next week. So it might be 125 protein and 85 fat, and then I might do 120 protein and 80 fat, and then I might do 115 protein and, either cut the fat or the protein or both. And so we will see. The plan still may change, but my plan was not to go under 70 grams of fat this time. So I think we can do that, especially ramping up the cardio, since I really wasn't doing much cardio this prep at all. And that's a big difference between my last prep and this prep. I started cardio a lot sooner on my last prep, and we increased cardio sooner on my last prep. So the way I'm looking at this, I'll stop sharing the screen now. Let's see. The way I'm looking at this is I'm kind of excited about the fact that I'm thinking about myself right now as if I am 4 weeks out, because I'm flying out 4 weeks from now because we are doing the KBB Mexico retreat the same week of the show. So I'm flying down to Mexico on that Tuesday, and then the show is Saturday. So the way I'm looking at it is I'm 4 weeks out to the trip, 5 weeks out to the show. So I'm not counting on that 5th week. I don't want to have to make miracles happen in peak week. I want to come in, before that flight as lean as I can be, and then be able to refeed into the show. And that was something I really enjoyed on the last prep, was being able to do that. So the way I'm looking at this is like the next 4 weeks, including today, this week and the 3 after, are like a super intense mini cut. I'm pulling back. I want to pull back a little more right now. I may even pull back to 80 grams of fat this week just to really push it right now, so that when I'm flying out, I can eat ribeyes all week or skirt steak in Mexico, whatever it might be, right? I actually, funny enough, last week I bought my first skirt steak to try cooking myself, because it's a cut of meat you can get easily in Mexico. So I'm thinking ahead to, if I don't want to be preparing my body for the show with foods that I will not be able to eat when I'm down there. So one of the things that I'll be spending some time on this week is investigating grocery stores nearby in Playa del Carmen, pricing for grocery stores, what I can source down there, if I will be able, if it's even possible to ship anything from here internationally. So I'll be looking into all that to make sure that I have what I need food-wise for the show. What can I pack and bring with me? All of that kind of stuff. We'll talk a lot more about that. I'm going to actually do an episode all about peak week, so I can show you all my peak week plan in Mexico, because I'll be there 6 days essentially before the show, 5 days before the show. So let's see. There were some other things I wanted to share. I told you I was going to mention my chat with my functional doctor about hormones. So we have been watching my blood work for years, we've been playing with supplements, taking some supplements to help me bring that testosterone up, to help with all of my hormones. He suggested that it's time to go the HRT route, the bioidentical hormone replacement route. I'm not against hormone replacement, but I did want to try everything I could naturally to see if I could just get my levels up to where I want them before going the route of HRT. I will say this, though. In the last couple weeks, especially this week, I'm feeling better than ever. And I really do believe, y'all, that daily activity, being an active human being, and being at a healthy, fit level of body composition is one of the best things, two of the best things you can do for yourself. And I can't tell you how much I feel clearer, I feel focused, I feel energetic. All of those things I was struggling with due to low hormones, I'm not feeling that right now. After cutting. So it's very possible that as sedentary as I got in my off season and as high as my macros got, I was eating more than I needed to be eating, and I was sitting more than I needed to be sitting. So I'm wondering if just the lifestyle, the active lifestyle, and losing some body fat and being at what I would truly consider this 117 is where I probably want to live. And I'm using that as a marker for how I feel right now at this body composition, not I need to stay at 117 pounds on the scale. But where I am in this prep at around 117 feels so good that this feels like where I want to be in my regular off season. I don't want to put on an additional 10 pounds above that. It makes me feel more sluggish, and I don't feel as good and vibrant in my body. So I said to Bronson the other day, this is my new normal. I would love to hang out here in my off season and then only have 10 pounds to lose for stage to get to a more competitive lean level. So like I mentioned, my original goal was to get lower than my last show. That would have been about 107 would have been the goal. So from 117 sitting in my off season, that's only 10 pounds from an ideal, in my opinion, stage weight for me. At least at this stage. When I put on another 5 pounds of muscle, then we can talk about, not getting as low on the scale. But I got some work to do in that department. And that's really where I think HRT could potentially help me, especially if I get some testosterone. So we talked about potentially some testosterone and progesterone. I said I wanted to wait for some more blood work. I did another round of blood work. My progesterone looks good. My estrogen looks good. It usually does, but my testosterone actually looks better than it did. So at the lowest, it was less than 3. It couldn't even register. Then it got up to 3. Then I brought it up to 7. Then I brought it up to 9, and now it's at 11. So it's the best it's been. It's still on the low end of the normal range for women. For women, I believe 7 is the low, and for a long time I was under 7. But we are now grasping at the bottom levels of the testosterone, but at least I'm in range. So I do think that could absolutely help in my off season. I'm obviously not going to try to start HRT within 4 weeks, 5 weeks of a show. So I'm not going to go that route yet. But it is probably something I will look into for the off season and before I do another cut. All right. I already mentioned the September retreat and the Mexico retreat. We are still allowing, I believe we have one more spot for the Mexico retreat. So if anybody wants to join us, you can find the info. I put the link below in the description to where you can get the info about Mexico and make your deposit. All right. I did talk about, it's funny, I made notes about these things and I ended up talking about them already, about the difference between my calories, macros from the last prep and the cardio from the last prep to this one. So that really does, in my opinion, explain why I was not making the progress. It wasn't just my hormones. I just wasn't doing the work that needed to be done to make that progress. And sometimes we need that objective point of view. We need to look at the data and say, what is the data telling me? Because I know what my emotional brain is telling me, but I can't blame this on hormones when I didn't do the work. Oh, Amanda says, I haven't been feeling any endorphins lately with exercise. Maybe I need to do real cardio. Girl, I tell you what, first off, the new program is going to give you some endorphins, because the other big change I made, I was about to tell y'all, the changes that I made recently is just 2 weeks ago, I started testing the new program that I just released inside the Academy, which is a 4-day full body push-pull split. It's pushing muscles and pulling muscles twice a week each. And so you're getting some upper and some lower 4 days a week. And there's an optional 5th day of core training. So this training, y'all, makes me feel fit. It makes me feel alive. I have more functional movements in there. I've got some fun stuff that I don't always put in a pure bodybuilding program, like push press and squat press and lateral lunges, which are amazing for, functional fitness and mobility. So I've got a lot of stuff that's challenging the body in different ways, and I am loving it. I'm recovering better. I'm getting a great pump in the gym. I'm feeling pumped. I don't feel taxed and exhausted after my training. Like, I have been getting to the point with my leg days where I was feeling so dusted after a leg day. My legs were exhausted, and when I started to add in cardio, I was not recovering as well from my training. So this kind of training can be really incredible for giving you that kind of endorphin rush, giving you the pump, getting you sweating without necessarily needing to add cardio. What I will tell you is I'm not even adding any intense cardio. I did one session, one short hit session, and that does get those endorphins going. But most of my cardio is just lifts, either on the treadmill, slight incline, like a 3 on the incline, slow lifts, or I go outside and I walk outside. So it's all walking. I did 1 day of partially some stationary bike and partially some walking, but most of what I'm doing is just walking. What I am doing, my plan moving forward, is I'm going to continue with my 4-day full body split and my core day. I'm going to now be doing at least a 20-minute walk every day. But I'm going to I just talked about aiming for 2 times a week hit, and splitting it up to do some cardio in the morning and some at night, because I have been doing most of my cardio at night. And while I'm loving it, because it really does help me digest after the last meal of the day, I go to bed feeling empty and not uncomfortable after my last meal. And it kind of helps me clear my mind at the end of the day. I pushed myself to do a morning cardio session this morning before I had my coffee. And so this, I think, is going to be the next game changer. Morning cardio before my coffee, and then evening cardio after my last meal. Bookend the day with time for myself, time in my own thoughts, or to process the day, or to do some social media while I'm on the treadmill, or just to watch TikTok videos and get a laugh. I just think it's going to be a great way to bookend my day with movement. I always do a little stretch after my cardio sessions, because I tend to feel more locked up after I'm just walking, even than I do from my weight training sessions. So walking can be tough on your hips, on your joints, on your knees, all those things, right? My low back gets kind of tight, so I like to stretch after my walks. So morning and evening cardio and recovery, stretching, and foam rolling. And that's going to be a absolutely essential part of my day, stepping it up to the next level, basically. All right. Oh, another exciting new thing that happened. I got a posing coach. I have been wanting to work with this lady for years now, and she just won her title in the FMG. So she was in the WBFF with me. She was at the last show that I was at. I think she was working the show. She wasn't competing at that time. She had gotten her crown in bikini in WBFF, and then she really led the charge with changing the game and holding the federation accountable for some shady stuff, and essentially was the catalyst that led to the formation of FMG. And then she just made her debut in the FMG and won her bikini title again for 35 plus in California, in FMG California show. So I was like, this is the time. It's time for me to finally work with Lynn. Her name is Lynn, and she is a coach with the Posing Institute, which is an international posing team led by the best of the best, Tawny Sheehan, who is the world bikini champ in FMG. And she will be, she's already won 1 or 2 regional titles this year. Absolutely incredible. She won the overall bikini champion title in California. So it's her company, and Lynn is a coach with her. And we had our first session last week, and y'all, this is going to be the other thing that's going to change the game. Lynn is going to get my posing game stronger. I need help with transitions. I need to find my best poses in my current physique, and as my physique changes, as we get to stage. I know a lot of the things that I need to work on, but she is going to help me figure those things out, polish the whole package, and bring just a whole new presentation to the stage. So I'm super, super excited about that. I have booked a photo shoot with that team, the Posing Institute. We have a team shoot in Mexico, so that's going to be really exciting, and a posing session with the ladies in person before the show. I have booked my show registration, my tan, my hair and makeup, my flights, the condo we are staying at, beachfront condo we will have for the retreat, which is right there near the host hotel and near the theater. And my gowns have arrived. I've ordered 3 gowns. Well, I ordered 5, and I actually narrowed it down to 3. I cannot decide between the 3. I will be picking 1 for stage and 1 for registration night, the night before the show. I had my fitting this morning for my alterations, so they are being altered over the next few weeks, and then I'll make that decision when I get to Mexico. I'm going to bring all 3 gowns with me, and one of them, if it doesn't make the cut for the show or Reg Night, I will probably use it for a photo shoot. Also, I got my bikini shoes. I got my new shoes that match my bikini for the stage. They are higher even than the shoes I was practicing in before. So another thing I will be stepping my game up with is practicing walking and posing in my shoes daily from here on out. No, Juliana, none of the gowns are purple after all. So for those of you who do not know, I will be wearing the same bikini that I got from Angel Competition Bikinis that I wore in the Angel Competition Bikinis fashion show in May. And it is purple, and it is gorgeous. It is purple, and it's got some black. It's got black underneath and some blue. So my stage shoes have arrived. They have some purple going on, black and purple going on. I may embellish them more or not, but none of the gowns are purple. Wonder if I should tell y'all what the colors are. Y'all can guess. Guess what color gowns I am choosing between. And they are all different, quite different in style. So they're quite unique. Let's see what else. So gowns, shoes. Okay, up next, booking photo shoots. So I will be doing a shoot with the KBB retreat group, a group shoot, a couples shoot with me and Bronson, and I'll be doing the posing shoot with the posing team. So at least 3 shoots. It's going to be a crazy fun weekend. I need to find shoes for the gowns. I did try them on with a pair of shoes to set the height of the shoes, of the heel that I need to get, but I don't love those shoes with the gowns. So I need to get, I think one color of shoes would actually go with any of the gowns. So I'll be looking for a pair of shoes that I like better than the ones that I have. And then I also need to work on the accessories. So all the accessories for the gowns and the bikini. I haven't decided on my jewelry for the bikini or the gowns yet. And then I'll also be thinking about hair and makeup. What do I want to do? Do I want to straighten my hair? Do I want curls? Do I want like a feminine look? Do I want an edgy look? Like, what do I want to do for stage? My last stage look was more edgy. And my last, when I did the Angel competition bikinis, I made it a lot more glam. So I will be thinking about what I want to do for this show in terms of hair and makeup. And then I have to confirm all of the events for the weekend and make sure I have a itinerary, very clear itinerary for where I need to be, when I need to be there, both for the show, all the shoots, registration, and the retreat. So a little bit of stuff to do. I'll definitely share when I get to that point of planning my packing. What am I packing for the show? I'll show you all the cool stuff, all the things we have to think about, bringing stuff for the tan and all that. So everything that I'll be packing and my food plan and all that other stuff as we get closer. But my goal here is to do at least another update in a week or two. I really want to try to do an update for y'all every week from here on out because things are going to be changing. I think the changes are going to be so clear more week to week, but at least in 2 weeks and then before I leave. So I could do a 2-week out or a 3-week out to the show and then a peak week at least. And then of course I'll do a show update and all kinds of fun stuff. Maybe we can do a live while we're down there. That would be really fun. All right, ladies. Whew, that was a very, very long, drawn out update. That's what happens when I don't update y'all for 5 weeks. I have so much more to talk about. So that's that for now. I will try to check in a lot more frequently so these can be quick and to the point. But if y'all have any other questions about prep, about cutting, about hormones, about any of these things, drop them in the comments. Even if you're watching the replay, drop them in the comments and I will answer in the comments or I'll answer on our next video. And y'all give me some ideas for masterclasses because your girl's running out of them. I'm sure as soon as I review all of the Academy check-ins tomorrow, I will have 10 new ideas for masterclasses. It always happens when I start reading through check-ins because y'all have questions, y'all have struggles, and that helps me figure out my topics. So I'm sure I'll come up with something for next week, but just in case, if you have a request, I'm always happy to honor those requests. So drop anything that you want to hear about in a future masterclass, and I got you covered. I was probably talking fast because it's an hour and a half now. So I will bid you adieu. I will give you your night back. Go crush it. Kill it this week. Join me in my laser beam focused mentality. No stone left unturned. If I'm not going to show up on that stage not feeling like $1,000,000. So every single day I have to think about how I want to feel on that day. Did I do enough? I do not want to have any regrets about the way that I did this prep. I don't want you to have any regrets about the way you're doing life. So every single day, here's my little jewel for the end here. Ask yourself, what would future me be proud of? If you're struggling with a decision, you have a choice, you have a temptation, whatever in front of you that day. What will make future me proud? And with that, good night.